So now we've written our first Python function, let's write a more useful Python function. And we'll attempt to grab some data on a particular Bitcoin address from a Bitcoin block explorer. So I've got some examples of block explorers up here. I've got blockstream.info and mempool.space. And to request data on a particular Bitcoin address, we can use their APIs. So the blockstream.info API is documented here. You can make GET requests for transactions, addresses, blocks, etc. Similarly, the mempool.space API is documented here. You can make similar GET requests. So we'll take a random Bitcoin address from blockstream.info. This is a very old style Bitcoin address. It starts with a 1, so it dates back to the early days of Bitcoin history. And if we make a API call to blockstream.info for data on this address, it will return a JSON data structure that looks something like this. So key value pairs within squiggly brackets, and the mempool.space API will return exactly the same JSON for a particular Bitcoin address. So let's write some Python code to grab this data, and we'll also get that Python code to spit out the number of transactions that this particular Bitcoin address has been involved in. To date, we can see that the transaction count is 179. So all going well, the Python code will spit out 179 for the transaction count. Now, to write this Python code, we will need to install a Python package. To manage Python packages, we can use pip, and the package that we need to install is the requests package. So requests allows us to send HTTP requests, and this package is not part of the Python standard library, so we will need to install this requests package. So let's go into the terminal, and we can list out the Python packages that we currently have installed on this machine using pip3 and list. And we can see that requests isn't one of the packages that I currently have installed on this machine, so let's install it. So it'll be pip3 install requests, and that's successfully installed. If we do pip3 list, we should be able to see that request is now one of the installed packages, and it is. So that's one of the packages we need to have installed. The other package that we need is the JSON package. So we will need to convert the JSON data structure to a Python dictionary. Very similar looking data structure, but just allows us to write Python code to interact with the data structure. So we'll need the JSON package, but that is already installed as part of the Python standard library, so we don't need to install the JSON package. Okay, so let's go back into the terminal and we will start writing some Python code. So let's go into the Python REPL, shell, Python 3. We will import these two packages that we need. So we'll import requests that we installed, and we'll also import JSON, the JSON package. Now we define a couple of variables. We'll define the address variable, and we'll put the Bitcoin address that we had as a string for this address variable. We can paste that in as a string, can be single or double quotation marks, doesn't matter. And we'll also define the URL variable, where again it will be a string of this URL, not including the Bitcoin address at the end of it, and then leave / at the end. So that's a string for the URL variable. And then let's define a function to do the work for us. So we'll define a function called checkAddress, and we'll give it those two arguments. We'll give it the address argument and the URL argument, because it's a function with colon. We're defining a function, so let's do tab, and we'll define a response variable that uses the get method from a request package. So the package is requests, the method is get, and we will get data from blockstream.info, and for that particular Bitcoin address. So because they're both strings, we can just do URL plus address, and then we'll convert from JSON to the Python dictionary. So we'll define a variable JSON response, and we'll use that JSON package with the loads method, and we will load JSON from the text of that response variable, and finally the function will return that JSON response. Okay, so we've finished defining the checkAddress function. Do Control J to get out of defining that function. And then we will define a variable address info to spit out the output from the checkAddress function, and it had two arguments, address, URL. Okay, so we've defined a function, we've defined a variable for the output from that function. And so now if we print the address info variable, that should give us the same JSON that we had, that we displayed in the browser for this particular Bitcoin address. And so that's the JSON looking data structure, is actually the Python dictionary, because we've converted from JSON to a Python dictionary. And if we go back to the browser, it should look pretty much exactly the same in terms of key value pairs, and it does. We can see what data structure it is by doing print type for address_info, and that tells us that it is a Python dictionary rather than JSON data structure. And we did say that we would also spit out the number of transactions that this particular Bitcoin address has been involved in. And so to do that, we'll do print, so it's the address info variable, and what we want is the transaction count from within chain_stats. So to get that from a Python dictionary, you need to use square brackets, chain_stats, close square brackets, and then we want the transaction count from those chain stats. So again, open square bracket, double quotation marks, transaction underscore count, quotation marks, end of square brackets, and a curly bracket to end that print statement. So that should give us the number of transactions that the Bitcoin address has been involved in. Let's enter, and it's 179, which is that transaction count. So, as promised, we've written a Python function to grab some data on a particular Bitcoin address, and then we've printed out a particular field from that data structure, the number of transactions that the Bitcoin address has been involved in. So confirm transaction counts is 179. So yeah, that's our second Python function, and slightly more interesting than just hello world. So we'll exit out of that. And if anything wasn't clear, there's some more resources that I've got here. Information on how to use the requests package and information on JSON and converting JSON to a Python dictionary.